Senator Terry Mercer, you are something of a rare bird at this convention. Do you know what I'm talking about?
I've been called a lot of things, but a rare bird suits for the occasion.
I'm going to call you the only senator here.
That's also true today.
How come?
Well, a lot of my colleagues have decided since the divorce that they didn't want to participate. I've been a Liberal since 1967.
But now you're supposed to call yourself an independent.
I'm still a Liberal. I am an independent member of the Senate, but I'm still a Liberal. I've been a Liberal, as I said, since '68, and I'm going to remain a Liberal.
Divorces are usually not amicable, at least in the beginning. How's the modernization going?
Well, it's a work in progress, and we really don't know where we're going because of the new way of appointing senators that Mr. Trudeau has adopted. We'll see how that works. He's appointed a few, and he'll have to appoint some more shortly. And
what concerns do you? Sorry to interrupt. What concerns do you have about it?
Well, my real concern is that he's asking us to remove politics from a political institution, and it's very difficult to imagine what a host of Parliament, which the Senate is, without politics. And it's going to get to me, the ultimate problem will be when we have a whole chamber of 105 independents of getting anything accomplished without some structure to those 105 people.
What do you imagine the problem could be? Well,
the problem is finding a consensus to get the agenda moving forward, or probably number one is agreeing on what the agenda is.
Is that what's happening?
Not yet. Oh, no. We're fine right now, but we don't have a lot of legislation that has arrived from the House of Commons yet. It's early days in a new Parliament. We just are starting to receive some legislation. Now we'll get into the position. Who introduces the legislation? Who sponsors it? Who opposes it? Who the critic is? It's natural. One would naturally expect that the opponents to government legislation would be the members of the Conservative Party. But
now you don't know.
But now we don't know.
How do independents vote, and how do you whip them to make sure that the government's bill gets passed?
Yeah, that's going to be an issue that the government will have to decide, and when the ultimate problem will be when there's a piece of legislation that the government of the day desperately wants to pass, but they cannot whip a majority of members of the Senate to pass that legislation. Now,
that sounds like paralysis.
Well, it does sound like paralysis. Although I think what it will lead to is some compromise, some negotiations, because I think we're going to see many more amendments to legislation. Now, in the past 10 years, without trying not to be too political, but in the Harper years, there were very, very few amendments allowed. And because Conservatives once they had the majority in the Senate, they were whipped. There was no amendments. We passed legislation, or they passed legislation, which we looked at and we said, this is flawed legislation. Either it was written poorly, or it was going to be challenged in the courts, and much of it has been. And we knew from the beginning that this wasn't going to work. But hopefully we're in a situation now where we'll be amending the legislations and sending it back to House of Commons when they don't get it right.
So when you're voting on a bill,
yes,
will you be voting with the government and thinking of yourself as a Liberal, or will you be thinking of yourself as an independent?
I'll be thinking, first thing I think of is I'm a Nova Scotian. And I think, and that is the ultimate.
Okay.
I'm there to represent.
And then, will you support the government? Always.
No.
As an independent.
No. Even when the Liberals were in power, when I was appointed, I didn't always vote with the government then. If it was a piece of legislation I opposed, I voted against it.
Is it confusing right now?
Not to me.
But to the senators themselves as to how this is supposed to work?
I think people don't like upset. And I think that they're just a little, confusion is probably a good description.
Thank you so much for your frankness.
Thank you, Oliver.
Come again.
Good to be here.